to close out this session, we're going to have a chat with two mayors. And my colleague, Aris, Folley, staff writer at The Hill, is back to lead this conversation. But before I say it, we've got the mayor. We're going to introduce Betsy Price. You need to tell Betsy that I still want to go bike riding with her. She takes incredibly famous bike rides. Over to you, Aris.
Well, joining me now, Republican Betsy Price is just the second female mayor and now the longest serving mayor of Fort Worth, Texas. And McLean is the Democratic mayor from Boise who just took office this year. Welcome to you both.
Glad to be with you. Thanks for having us. I'll take you bike riding anytime.
I told Betsy when I heard that she takes people on bike rides that I want to go too. One of these days we'll be able to travel again.
Me too.
We'll have a big mayors and correspondents ride.
Right. So I know that both of you have held office for several years now. Mayor Price in your current position since 2011. And Mayor McLean, though you just assumed office this year in Boise, you've been on the Boise City Council also during that same span. I'd love to know, would either of you say you've seen any change for women in the political field in the past decade?
Well, yeah, I was first elected to public service in 2001 or 2000 and took office 2001 and as Tarrant County's tax assessor, and then moved to the mayor's office in 2011. And there were very few women at that time, probably at the county. Of the top 40 officials at the county, there were less than 20% that were women. And now it's about 50% at the county. And on our city council, I was one of only two women. Actually, I was the only woman when I was first elected, and the next go round we added another one, and now there are four of us on the council out of 9. So it really has changed dramatically. I think strong women leaders can help set that example and encourage more women to do this.
Right. And Mayor McLean?
Yeah, I'd say I've seen similar. When I came onto the council in 2011, our council only has 6 people, so it was actually half women. 3 of us were women, 3 men. And then for a little bit of time while I was still on the council, it was majority female, and now it's split, and I'm the first elected female mayor in the city. And I've seen also in the last 10 years in legislative districts, other places, the county commission offices, that people here in our region, but also in our state, women are stepping up to run. But also, I think importantly, I'm recognizing that we have to be encouraged in different ways and support each other, because it takes more to convince us to run. And just even having that conversation in the public sphere among women and among leaders and elected officials is, I think, a big step. Because now I will often hear, well, I need to ask you to run because I have to ask you 7 times before you'll run. As just as something that women recognize we need to do.
Right. And
I think that's very true, Laurie. Women do have to be asked differently, and they really need a big circle of encouragement. I mean, I turned them down to run for mayor at least a dozen times before I finally agreed to it.
So I saw also,
because it's a different level than what I was doing.
Mayor. So I saw that data emerged also earlier this year that found that male mayors are still continuing to outnumber women mayors in the country, with only 15 women holding mayoral seats in the 50 largest U.S. cities. I'd love to know, Mayor Price, why do you think that is? I mean, is it possible it's due to a lack of interest?
You know, it's changing dramatically because for several years, Fort Worth is now the 13th largest city in the nation. And for several years during the 10 years I've served, I was the only one or one of only 2. And now in the top 25, there are, I think, 4 of us. But I just think that the demands on your time at this position or at Laurie's size city, no matter where you are, as a woman, as a mother, oftentimes business owner, grandmother, the demands on your time at the mayor's level are much greater, and many women are just reluctant to step up and give that. They don't maybe have the support at home that they need, and I think we have to figure out how to provide more support for women who do want to serve in public office, whether it's better child care for younger women, whether it's that backfill, whether it's the pay. I mean, the mayor's office in Fort Worth is not a paying job. Well, it's almost nothing. It's considered a voluntary job, and that's very difficult for people to give up their career to serve at the public level. And that's something that we continue to address here.
And Mayor McLean?
You know, I think that there are probably a couple different reasons. One thing that I found is, and I think that Betsy said it, is you can't be what you can't see. And so for so often,
Right.
I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to be mayor. It wasn't even something that occurred to me that I might or could do. And shortly before I decided to run, and it was a really hard decision for me to run, but a group of Girl Scouts were in our council chambers, and they walked up to me, and one of them, looking up at the dais, said, "Why aren't there any women on the mayor's wall?" Because we have this wall of mayors. And I said, well, there's actually one who filled in for a short period of time to solve a problem, but she didn't run. But it also made me realize that young girls are now looking and noticing when they aren't seeing female leaders, and that's a big step too.
Right.
And I think nationally, people are saying, there are a record number of women in Congress, there are a record number of women on boards, record number of women who are mayors, but we tap out in all of those areas at around 20%, even though we're 53% of the population. And then there's this other thing of, you don't look like a mayor. Because people haven't seen all that many female mayors, and these executive positions especially. I talked with people that had worked to elect female mayors in some of these larger cities that said that's a big step to be able to convince the public that you look like and can be a mayor or can be an executive.
Right.
I think that's one of a hurdle we still have to get through on a more regular basis, and then we'll start to see more.
And I can't tell you the number of times I've been places and I'd be there and I'd be waiting to be introduced, and somebody would say, "We're looking for the mayor. He hasn't come in yet." And I was going, "Well, you're looking at the mayor here, and she is here." And it's just kind of the way society sees it. And until more of us do it, as Lauren said, it's going to be very difficult because young girls don't necessarily see females in that role, and it's true at the CEO level too. They don't see them through. We've cracked that glass ceiling, but we haven't got quite through it.
Right, and also figures from the Center for American Women in Politics also show that when it comes to women's representation in federal and state offices this year, Democratic women are more represented than Republican women in not only Congress, but statewide elective executive offices and state legislatures. Mayor Price, I'd love to know if you think there are a particular set of challenges that Republican women running for office face that Democratic women don't face.
No, I don't think that there's a particular different set. I think the Democrat Party probably started pushing it a little sooner than the Republican Party. I think you're beginning to see a big rise in it on the Republican side. At least I certainly hope you are. There are many of us who've gathered together to work on that, and it's just been a little slower. Traditionally, and particularly in some of the southern states, it's been slower, but it's got great momentum now. But I don't think it's any one particular challenge.
Right. Data's also been showing this year that women, though still underrepresented when it comes to mayoral seats in the country, we've been seeing progress on this front when it comes to just the record number of women we've seen, Black women, that have run mayoral elections in major cities, according to data out of Rutgers. Does that make you both hopeful about women who are making strides on this front in the country? Mayor McLean.
I think that the progress we've seen in the last couple of years is incredible, and it does make me hopeful. And the more women we see stepping out, the more likely we'll see more women stepping out, because it's tough to decide, to take the plunge, to make that jump. But when you see that there are more, and even just after I was elected, I joined a cohort of women mayors that made me realize that many of the fears I had going into, deciding to take on an incumbent and run for this office, and now in the role, those concerns and fears I had were shared, and they were unique to the fact that I'm female. And so the more we see networks like that, the more we see women jumping in, I think it just begets itself, and we'll start to see more and more people doing the same. And that makes me hopeful.
I think Lauren's right. I think women tend to sit back and think, "Ooh, I'm the only one that's ever experienced this." And if we can get that network together where you realize every other woman mayor has been through the same thing, or at least some semblance of it, that's going to help us dramatically. We just started the appointments project here in Fort Worth, and it came out of Kansas City, sorry, I had to stop and think, from Sly James. And it's a project to get more women, and particularly women of color, to serve on boards and commissions, to educate them about what it takes to do that. Because often that's the best starting step for people to step up into public service. We've got 324 seats on boards and commissions in Fort Worth, and less than a third of them are filled by women. And I think the Apartments Project is once a week or twice a week, depending on how often they want to do it. Just a real quick seminar about what's going on in those boards, what it takes to serve, how they can volunteer or put their name to observe. We just started it 2 or 3 months ago, and so far we've had several hundred women sign up because they were very interested, and reaching out and encourage them is the direction that we have to go.
Oh, and also, Mayor McLean, I'd love to know, as we're coming to a close, what are your hopes for women in politics?
My hopes for women in politics. I said on the night that I was sworn in that one of my hopes for the young women in the room that night, because there were so many young girls and young women that came, was that at some point this wouldn't be unusual and it would seem incredibly normal. That we wouldn't say, oh, there's a female mayor in Boise, there's a female mayor in Fort Worth. It is that there's a great mayor in this city, and it's no longer something of note, but something that's become rote because so many women have gotten involved early, built the confidence they need, built the support networks that are so necessary, and then decided to jump in because they should, and they're able to show what great mayors and leaders they can be.
I would grow along with you. I think the key is that in a few years, when my granddaughter's of age to run, I want them to say, is she the best candidate? Not is she a woman or is she a woman of color, but rather who's the best candidate? And I think that if we all work towards that and encouraging everybody to do their bit for public service, we'll be a lot better served.
I just want to jump in here. I'm going to jump in and tag along. I'll say, Mayor McLean, I really look forward to welcoming you to Washington when you eventually come out for a conference of U.S. mayors, the U.S. Mayors Conference. I'll have, Betsy Price and I know each other from that, this past February, so it's a cool crowd. But one of the things I want to just quickly ask you is when you look at voters, we're talking about leadership right now, when you look at voters, the most dependable voter is the woman over 50 years old, says she's going to vote, and she finds a way to vote. I'm just interested in kind of a, quick snapshot, very fast from both of you, about what that 50-plus woman voter wants. What is on her mind? Betsy?
I think that 50-plus woman voter really wants to make a better world for their children or for their own family. They're all looking, they know how important the vote is. They've been around long enough, seen enough elections that they really understand that one vote does indeed make a difference and that people have fought and died for our freedom. And I think they're looking to make a better U.S. and a better community for their family and everyone's family. And they're persistent about it.
Mayor McLean?
Yeah, I think that was a great answer. I'd say here at home in Boise, women over 50 that are voters are thinking about all those things and thinking now, especially as our community grows, about whether or not their kids will be able to come back to Boise, buy a house, find a job, and build a life here. But then also recognize how important it is that we protect this community that we all love and that they have a part of that. And then nationally, I would say even, voters here, but women around the country are really concerned about the health of their families, the state and safety of schools, the economy since it's been shut down, and concerned about what's next, given all of these troubles at this really important moment in our history.
Aris, thank you for
concerned about education and health.
Aris, thank you for letting me tag on to your show here. Back over to you.
Yes, well, thank you so much, both of you, for taking the time to talk to us today. It's a great conversation, and I hope you all have a great day.
And
Go
Betsy
vote.
Price, I'll be down there in Fort Worth for my bike ride. I think we'll all converge down there.
Well,
She's famous. She's really famous for these awesome bike rides, getting intergenerational bike rides. I think it's the coolest thing, is out there. I think we could do it in Boise, too.
It'd be great.
I'll take you on a trail run and a mountain bike ride anytime you want.
You have a deal, both of you.
Mike will travel.